What up? This is Rama Screen, and in the celebration of For the Record, which the first episode, there's always Spotify, premiered at virtual South by Southwest. I'm here talking with the stars of this wonderful new anthology series, Anna Hopkins and Julian De Zotti. How are you, Anna and Julian?
Great. I like how you say Julian's last name. That was great.
Oh, okay. I was worried there.
No, it's perfect. It's like an Italian sports car or something. It's really well done. Thank you.
I'm a huge fan of Canadians, by the way, so thank you for taking the time.
Oh, good. Thank you for having us.
Julian, let me start with you, since you wrote and also co-directed this episode, right? Which I very much enjoyed. I think any of us who've ever gone through a breakup can totally relate. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't there an old Canadian TV series called For the Record? Probably it's unrelated.
Yes.
So, what led you to writing this script, and was it loosely inspired by your own experiences?
Definitely. I mean, it came from a very painful personal breakup from several years ago. But I was interested in telling a love story from a different way, and usually we see the graduation of a love story from first love to the end of it. And I thought, the end of a relationship and a breakup is such a fertile ground for conflict and drama, and is a great jumping off point. And what if the challenge of the show is to get this couple to find a way back together? It felt like, let's start at a 10 and see if we could push that and make it even more dramatic. But the music tie-in always came with, me and my ex had a record collection, and as we were divvying it up, it just sort of hit me that each of these albums represented a different moment in the relationship, and music has this power to be the soundtrack of our lives and take us back to moments in our lives, and it really elevates it into those unforgettable memories. So I wanted to make a show that showcased the music that I know and love, my own personal experience, but then also making music the focal point, and how music can be the thing that connects us and brings us together. And that's really what the music does literally in this show. It's the songs and the different connections and stories that are able to conspire to bring our couple back together.
And Anna, what attracted you to this project, For the Record? And do you share some things in common with your character, Angela?
Well, it's funny. The question of what attracts you to projects always comes up, and it's like, oh, I had an audition, or, or, something was sort of like offered through, so I didn't know anything about the project until really like I came on board. And so I was sort of learning about it as we were, as I was preparing and we were sort of getting into it. And I said this, I think somewhere else, but I remember reading the first episode and thinking like, okay, so this music is like a placeholder in the script. We're not actually going to use these iconic songs, because how could they possibly do that? And then finally, like, I learned about the project. And so that was super exciting to be able to work with that music, first of all. And so do I have anything in common with Angela? I think that, that the sort of nuanced gray area of being the person to end something, thinking that once, okay, I made this decision and therefore I will be happy when it's over because this is the right thing to do. And then once you do it, it's like, oh, wait, this is not that easy. So I think that area was really nice to play. You don't get to see that a lot, that sort of regret, even though you felt like you were doing the right thing. So I think I could relate to that.
Anna, do you yourself collect vinyl records? And if so, what artists do you have on your collection?
I don't collect vinyl records, but I love music. And growing up, I always had cassettes. So I have I had two cassettes that I really wore out a lot. One was Oasis.
Yes.
And the other was Chet Baker, like a really old recording. And yeah, I would cry at night looking at the cover of the Oasis cassette, knowing that I would never marry the lead singer. Like I was obsessed. That's what I remember from my cassette world.
Oh, that makes me so happy. You are extra cool now for liking Oasis. So.
Oh, man, so good.
I love the inclusion of the vinyl records, of course, in this episode. It kind of reminds me of that movie High Fidelity. And with all the things with CD and Spotify and iTunes, they can't compare to the sound of a vinyl record. There's something crisp about it. So that actually goes to my next question, Julian. The song selections in this episode. I noticed there was NWA, there was Bon Jovi, there was Nessun Dorma by Luciano Pavarotti. How did you come to select which vinyls or which songs to feature here? And were there other choices that you wanted to include but somehow just couldn't?
I think it was a mixture of a couple of things. One, just my own favorite albums, and then working closely with our music supervisor. The first episode primarily uses tracks from Universal Music, and all the album covers are from Universal Music. So we worked very closely with the music supervisor and then the sync team over at Universal to sort of pick, okay, what are the albums that they've got re-releases coming out for? What are those recognizable albums that people will see and know that are going to elicit a feeling in the audience, especially because we're going through this montage, and the bigger, flashier albums or recognizable covers that you have, it just attracts more of a feeling and a sense of nostalgia from your audience, and also elevates the production value of the episode itself. So it was a mixture of sort of my own picks and then working closely with the label to see which are some of the albums they wanted to feature prominently. And I was like, yeah, the most famous ones we can get, let's do it. So that was really that's what really drove that. And then in terms of what we couldn't get, some of the later episodes, we had to choose a different Nina Simone track because we just couldn't get the rights to another one. And then our third episode, which features Marvin Gaye but also Bob Marley, we shot two versions. One that features the Marvin Gaye song, and then one that was a Bob Marley. And because we were still figuring out which ones we can get the rights to, and you have to watch the episode to find out which ones. So those were I would say those were the sort of the main challenges, but the rest we had them pretty much locked in. And then episode 2 that Anna's in as well, Johnny Orlando. Episode 6 that Anna's in as well, with Zed's Dead. We had personal relationships through the label. They introduced us to these artists, and we got personal relationships with them and their teams. And so it was much easier to sort of hone in and select, again, what song fits the episode, the themes, the story, my own personal taste, and then what the artist is passionate about too, because you want them to be more creatively involved, and it's a collaboration. So it was also about figuring out what do they feel most passionately about in their own repertoire.
Yeah, I've seen the subsequent episodes as well. I love this show, so congrats to you guys. And
Thank you.
I've never literally broken a record before, but you guys made it look so easy. I'm like, you guys are so strong. Are those actual records, or are they just prop records?
They're real records. They're just 50-cent records from Value Village or whatever. We wouldn't break the actual ones, but we had it all mapped out. It was very, very choreographed. And because you're doing multiple takes, and I think I'm trying to remember, but some of the takes we did were just long takes. So you it's not like you can sort of go back, but every time you would go back and shoot it again, you'd have to reset it. So it was very much choreographed. This record is here, and Anna can remember this, I'm sure. You wanted the record out just out of the sleeve so you can grab it quickly and break it. It was very much, a sort of very intricate way of doing things. But a little trick was, some albums were a bit more sturdier than others. So we did score the edges with an X-Acto knife. So they were more breakable, because there were certain takes where we're just trying to break these.
Yeah.
And it's great for the acting, but you're not getting the same effect on screen where you want to see these things explode essentially. But yeah.
So my final question for both of you: do you think that in a relationship, it's best to separate your items from your significant other from the beginning, even when you live together? Because, maybe if Angela and Ray had done that, then they wouldn't have such big arguments over it. Or do you think that one should never enter a relationship with that kind of mindset? Go ahead,
I
Anna.
think that, in a very meticulous, not messy world, yeah, go into a relationship without sharing your stuff. But I think that's kind of avoiding, there's a joy in sharing your stuff. And if you want to not engage in that joy, then you might, not engage in the grief afterwards. But if you want to be fully human and get the good and the bad, share your shit, I'd say.
Yeah, relationships are complicated and messy, but also it's about building a life with someone else and pooling your resources and getting, growing and being bigger and better as a unit. But that as to say, also to say I have NDAs and prenups with anyone I date.
All right. For my fans,
Yeah.
everybody go check out For the Record. This is an awesome, awesome anthology show. Anna and Julian, thank you for talking to me and congratulations.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much, Rama. Thanks for having us.